This is the Keller Chronicles, Cook with Your Heart. Stories, lessons, and flavors from Chef Duane Keller, a chef who has spent 5 decades cooking for presidents, royalty, and people just like you.
Welcome to the Keller Chronicles. And
Good
today
morning.
we have a very special guest, Lisa, the founder and president of Mr. Frank's Kitchen. I personally use all your spice blends and adore them, and all our members love them too. The tropical sriracha is really just flying out, and I appreciate you helping us out. I've got a quick story I just got to share with everybody. I always say cook with your heart, and being in the right place is important. I sat in the steps of Elmead Country Club and just had this feeling, just being at home. And when I wrote the first menu, I wrote it from my heart, and I included your spice blends, three different spice blends in my recipes. Thank you. Everybody's really enjoying everything.
Thank you.
I wanted to have you on, and I know you're in Washington, so it's first thing in the morning there.
Mhm.
I was on the West Coast in Vancouver and British Columbia during the World Expo 85, 86. And I wanted to talk to you about your father, because my father was a great mentor of mine. And, I know Frank's Kitchen's been around for a long time,
Yeah.
10 years. You're the president and founder, and you're originally the East Coast. Can you tell me a little bit about your father and Canada?
Yeah. My dad's story is always, I love sharing it because he was just like, they broke the mold with him. Like, he was such a character. He was never afraid of anything. So if somebody challenged him or, gave him an idea or something, he would take it head on. And so he had come over, he immigrated to Canada in 53 from Austria. And he didn't speak the language. He was a builder by trade, an old world carpenter. So if you look on the website at all, like, you'll see a lot of his carvings, or our posts have his carvings on it. And he started out working, as a builder, and then he started Tasty Treats, which is kind of like Dairy Queens, and was super successful within a few years. I think he had like 5 to 8 of them. And then he had a friend one day, he was like, Franz, you should build a restaurant. And so my dad didn't know a thing about cooking and built the entire restaurant from the ground up. And long story short, within, again, a few years, he was one of the most successful restaurants in the Falls. So super, super, super proud of the legacy, and just as a mom and as a, I have 2 kids, just knowing what it takes to raise children, and just now looking back to see all of his accomplishments when he had 2 littles, and he still always made the time for us, and he always took us for drives and to play. And so his story is, I could rattle on for a very long time about, because it's pretty remarkable. So I'm very, very proud.
In Niagara Falls, he had a restaurant.
Yeah, it was on Lundy's Lane.
What was the name?
It was Frank's Steakhouse and Tavern.
Okay.
And it's
That's
actually
awesome.
the really cool part is it's still there. Like, there were 3 different aspects to my dad's restaurant. He had the main dining room when you walked in, which is Frank's Steakhouse. And then he had the Copper Rail Lounge. And then he had the beer garden upstairs. Being from Austria, he had to have a beer garden. So there were 3 separate levels. And the Copper Rail Lounge is now, it's still there, but it's called Wine Keller's. And all of his wood carvings and his brickwork and he did stained glass, like, everything's still preserved. So there's a huge beam over the main bar that's got my name carved in it. And it's just, it's cool. It's very, very cool. It's a cool legacy.
That is very cool. Wine Kellers. Keller
Wine.
meaning basement, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
My Spanish is better than my German.
Niagara Falls is a really fun, interesting place. We used to go there quite a bit. My dad would, in the 70s, we had a customized van that we built, and we drive up there, and I don't know what we were doing up there, but I recall back in the I have a memory that I can remember everything. And I remember when I was like, I don't know, 2 or 3, my dad holding me over Niagara Falls and looking at my mom and saying,
You're right.
Yeah,
It's now or never. Right on.
Where does Jersey come in to the family? Did you grow up in Jersey?
No, we were all over the place. So when we moved from Canada, we wound up in the Catskills in New York. Spent, I want to say 4 or 5 years there. And then on a whim, we're Hungarian Gypsy by ethnicity. And then my mom's side was Irish, but my dad had a really severe case of wanderlust. So I think I was in 8 different schools by the time I hit 7th or 8th grade. So on a whim, after the Catskills, he was like, let's go to Tahoe. So we moved out to Lake Tahoe. And then we were there for a few years. He opened a restaurant. I went to high school, was on the ski team, all that. And then my grandpa died and my mom inherited some money. So my dad was like, we're going to travel. So he closed the restaurant, packed us up, and we traveled in a van, the States and Canada for an entire year, which sounds cool now. But when you're 13 and your brother is 16, like it's not cool.
That's great.
But it was
That's
good.
great.
It was a good time. We saw a lot of great memories. So anyways, I wound up back after that. We wound up back in New York, and I went to high school and college in New York. And then I wound up living in Connecticut and working in the city in Connecticut for like 10 years after that.
Is that how you know Diana from Gulf Kitchen?
No, LinkedIn. And actually there was another lady that I had connected with who actually made the introduction. Diana and I had crossed paths, but we just had not connected. And yeah, we spoke on the phone, and it was on like Donkey Kong from there. So yeah, she's good people. I love her to pieces.
Yeah, she's very talented, knows the industry so well. Diana from Gulf Kitchen is pretty much, I always acknowledge her in most of my podcasts because she is so well connected and knows so much about golf and golf clubs and hospitality. She wrote an article about the legacy of your father, and I just think it's so awesome.
Thank you.
You know, my dad, I lost my dad in 2018, and wow, that really hit me hard. He mentored, everything. He mentored me. I am just pretty much my father. But I'm sorry that you lost your father 2008.
Yeah, my dad passed away in 2008. And so the fan in my kitchen, it's a commercial grade, and you physically have to push it really hard to turn it on and off. And yeah, the hood. And one night, like, it just started going off at 3:30 in the morning. And I was like, so I was like, I know it sounds crazy, but one night I'm like, Dad, can you please stop turning the fan off? I'm so tired, because it's loud. It wakes me up. 3:30 in the morning, the light goes on the oven. So like, I know it's my dad. So I'm like, so literally earlier when I was making breakfast, I was like, Dad, please don't turn the fan on. And you're talking about your dad, he turned the fan on. So
Today.
Right. I'm like, thanks, Pops.
Well, hi, Dad. And thanks for all the dads out there. We are, celebrated on Father's Day, but nobody really wants to do much on Father's Day.
Yeah.
The whole father, being a father is, for me, just the best thing I love most. I spend so much time with my son and help him learn, and he does very well. We moved down here to Georgia specifically for the school. They have incredible public schools here in Columbia County, but he's doing well.
Right on. How old is he?
He's going to be 11 on Thursday. Yeah, he's all geared up for that.
That's
We're
awesome.
going to have a party at Urban Air. He's got 12 of his friends he's invited. That's going to be it's going to be a lot of fun.
Right on. That's fun. My son's about to turn 16, so I'm like, the hair on the back of my neck is starting. He's a very good boy, so I'm very, very lucky, very blessed. But man, it goes by fast.
He's a handsome guy.
Thank you.
I saw a picture of him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my first question is, in this world of entrepreneurial, spirits and so many different spice blends. I love yours because they complement the proteins, and the way I use them and the way I season is I start with very, very high end, very seasonal, fresh proteins, and I don't really do a whole lot. When I worked for Capital Grill, our secret blend is, and I hope I don't get in any trouble, was Lowry's, and I think the Lowry's, I was shocked, but there's a little sugar in it. And when you broil steaks at like 1800 degrees, it works. And the food's great. But yours are just wonderful because they just complement what I'm doing. And my question was what is the strategy? I mean, being the president and founder of Mr. Frank's Kitchen for 10 years, when you see all these other spice companies out there.
I stay in my own lane. I think so for me, it's like wine. There's bazillion different wines out there and wine blends. And I'm not focused on what everybody else is doing. I'm focused on what I'm doing and just trying to produce the best quality products at the most affordable prices and give my customers the best service. Like you always hear me say, quality, and consistency in customer service. Like those are, the 3 C's that are super important to me. I have, a ton of innovation in the hopper that we're going to be working on in the next few years. When it comes to other blends, again, it's building your customer base, being strategic in, who you're targeting. The thing that I love is so much about Mr. Frank's and my blends is that, we're targeting K through 12, and then we have high-end restaurants and high-end country clubs and resorts. And then we also have corporate kitchens. And so we're, ubiquitous to everybody, but we're offering the quality and the consistency and affordability, which for me is super important. So I don't, I always say, I'm just stay in my lane, do my own thing. And I don't really worry about what other people are doing. So
season with your heart.
Yeah, that's when you say, cook with your heart. I'm like, is there any other way? Like, that's to me, that's, it comes from the heart and the flavor and just teaching people how to enjoy and appreciate and experience flavors. Like that is something near and dear to my heart. And like when I was competing, I remember I was a bodybuilder for a long time. And I remember when I first started, the dieting is very restrictive. And I had a friend who was a competitor say to me, you just put like tuna fish and white rice with mustard. And I was like, oh, it's like, oh, no. I am never going to be able to do this if that's how this is going to go. So I create like that. I really learned how to be creative and experience with flavor. So I understand the importance of flavors. And that's why, I am one of the many reasons I'm as passionate as I am about what I do, just especially with kids. So yeah, I could rattle on forever about that.
How many years were you in bodybuilding? Because it looks like from the pictures that you were like a pro.
I didn't go pro because I didn't want to take steroids. So I was natural. And I also got into life. Bodybuilding is a very, very one-track mind. It's a very solo experience because you get in the zone and, you have to stay in there to be successful. I did it for about a decade. I live the lifestyle. I still do. I'm actually contemplating doing another show in the spring. Just as a, I always said I didn't have anything to prove to anybody, and I don't, but to me, myself, I think I've got one more in me, so I might do one more. But the lifestyle is just really about being, active, living cleanly, eating cleanly kind of thing. So a long time. I've lived that lifestyle for over 20 years for sure. Yeah, over 20 years.
In the article that Diana wrote, can you share with us a little bit about the journey and how it tested you?
Yeah, for sure. So I started when my dad passed away. I kind of went through a pretty gnarly divorce. And I had I said it in the article, I had this aha moment on TJ Maxx because my dad used a stainless steel shaker and I actually still have the shaker. And I was standing there and I saw the shaker and I was like, it's time, because I always wanted to recreate my dad's seasoning. So I started, it was a process, and I'll truncate it as much as I can. Like I found a co-packer in Canada. I wound up developing everything, like my production, everything in Canada. And then I developed the other additional 5 seasonings. I launched with originally just the original, clean. I'm used only clean ingredients. That was important to me. Lori's is actually one of the ingredients in my dad's blend. So that's kind of why when you're like, we use Lori's, I'm like, ah. But so I started in there, and then I actually, when I say tested, like multiple reasons, but I wound up having a partner that tried stealing the business from me, stole from the company, stole from me personally as a single mom. I was a single mom with 2 little kids, and stole 20 grand from me. It was horrific. And so I wound up having to sue him, shut down, reboot in the States, and restart production and everything else. And then COVID hit. While I was suing him, I had been asked to do a food truck for a local brewery that was starting up. And that was super fun. Like there's a whole story. If you look at Mr. Frank's The Bus, like I found this old school bus. It was like one of the original Florida Gators buses in Miami. It was like bright orange, blue stripes, party deck on back, party deck on the back. And Tim, actually, my husband, drove it across country during spring break to get it out here, and we refitted the whole thing. It had $100,000 kitchen in it. Like it was just beautiful, and the guys that got it from were amazing. And Tim repainted it, and long story short, it was really, really successful. But I couldn't do it. Like it was just, I couldn't do both. So I wound up selling it, and then rebooted into retail and started production and everything. And then my whole goal when I started Mr. Frank's was retail. I wasn't thinking along the food service lines. And I learned really quickly that retail is, I call it death by paper cuts. The margins are very, very slim. Everybody is out to scalp you. Like everybody wants to, as the supplier, you're taking the hits, while the stores and the distributors in particular, like they don't lose their bacon. They're doing fine. So when UNFI hit me with it was like $16,000 or $26,000 deductible they couldn't explain, I was like, and you're supposed to just like, you call and it goes into a black hole. And so I literally, I called the supervisor and I was like, you guys are criminals. Like you are stealing my thunder. You're stealing the reason and the passion I'm doing this. And I'm not going to do that. So I pivoted. I pulled after 7 years and, $350,000 and 7 years of sacrifice and blood, sweat, and tears. I pulled out completely on principle, because I was like, I don't come from a place of greed. I don't operate from greed. I do this out of love and passion and legacy, and pivoted into food service. And I've been pushing that boulder back uphill the past 2 years, but it's never been better. Like it has been an amazing journey. I've met incredible people, and it's like, and I know you know this as a chef, like food service is about love. And again, cooking with love and feeding people, and the joy of cooking and just the passion and everything. So it kind of like reignited me as to why I was doing what I was doing. So there are many trials and tribulations along the way, the financial stresses, the losing sleep, and how am I going to pay for this, and how am I going to do this? And I was a single mom for a long time, no wealthy relatives, no wealthy friends. Like it was, I had my accountant when I had to sue my ex-business partner. I'll never forget it, because she was, when I first walked into Jerry Andrews is her name. And when I first started my business, I walked in with like 3 Tupperwares of receipts, and I still can like feel the whites of her eyes because I like accounting and finances are not my thing. Right. Long story short, she is one of my closest friends. And when I had to sue him, she was like, how much do you need? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I have no idea what I'm expecting. And she wrote a check for 2 checks, but it was $100,000, and slid it across the table and said, go get him. So short of that, and then the unsurmountable support. And I'm so incredibly grateful and blessed that the people that I have sitting at my table and the people who've gotten behind me. And so it's been, like I said, lots of trials and tribulations, but I have much, much, much to be grateful for. So
Yeah, we're blessed to be able to take care of others, and thank
mhm.
God you got that much tenacity, because a lot of people would never got back on that horse and kept going. What are your plans on K through 12?
You went to school in the States, right?
Yep,
Uh-huh.
Hershey, PA.
Okay. I did multiple schools too, but the food definitely needs some love. And there's this huge movement. Joe Urban from School Food Rocks I love that guy to pieces. He's one of the ones really leading the charge with innovating and making food better for the kids in schools. So my plan and my goal is to teach kids to not only have the cooks or the chefs and the nutritionists using the seasonings like in their cooking in schools, but also to incorporate flavor stations where we have the shakers or whatever, some form where the kids can actually mix and match, use the seasonings to their own creativity. My kids, I've seen them the last 10 years, even as littles, they use Mr. Frank's on everything. They make aiolis, spicy ketchups. They're constantly making stuff to dip it in. So I want kids in schools to do the same thing. Like you start that process early, so build little culinarians along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very important. They understand food and healthy food, and you mentioned clean ingredients. Tell us a little bit about that, because for people that aren't in production, what do you mean by clean?
It basically comes from the earth. So, that can be dissected too, but there are a lot of companies, and I don't want to name names, but spice companies that are really popular, and they use chemicals in their products. And I refuse to use chemicals. I will not compromise the quality of the blends to, make more money, have a better margin, appease this co-packer. I had a co-packer that I wanted to work with initially, who is huge and does Nestle, McCormick's, they do all their blends. And the only way they would do is if they put silicone dioxide in it. Not only did it completely change the flavor profile, but it went against everything I stand for. So I was like, no. So when you use Mr. Frank's, you're getting the purest of ingredients. So there's no chemicals, there's no preservatives, there's no junk, there's no BS in it.
That's why I love it so much.
Thank you.
It's just simply complimenting the food. In my first menu that I wrote, and I always say cook with your heart, I used your original in our signature chili recipe, bay scallop chowder, which are all flying out. They love the soup. It got a little cold here down in Georgia last week.
Yeah.
We do some really great big shrimp, and we have a dish. It's with your tropical sriracha, just grilled, wonderful. And then if anybody hasn't tried them, we use the tropical sriracha as wing dust, wing seasoning. It's fantastic. But your father is, for 70 years had that original, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. That's so Dad used it in the steakhouse, and he created it for his steakhouse. And he only had, I think it was 5 items on his menu. He had steaks, he had live lobster tank and live trout tanks, and then he had wings for the kids, and I think one other thing. But it was the steaks and the seafood that he was known for. And he created the original for not only to use on his steaks, which he used with Maggie and a little butter, and then the seafood, same thing. He would clarify the butter with a little Maggie and the Mr. Frank's, or the original. And to this day, there's a page on Facebook. It's like the history of Niagara Falls, and people still talk about Mr. Frank's Steakhouse and the flavors of the steaks and all that. It's incredible. It's very, very cool. So yeah, when I brought it to market, I was actually blown away, because that was my intent was meats and proteins, right? And people would come up to me and be like, "Are you Mrs. Frank? Like, it's the only way my kids eat their vegetables, or they put it on their mac and cheese, or they sprinkle it on pizza." And I was like, wow, like it's really, and there's a saying, I wish I could use it, but it's already taken. It's the number one thing people say to me is I put that SHIT on everything. And it's true. Like from popcorn to eggs to garlic. See how that took a lot. I know you
That's
sound.
all right. That's not too bad. You've done well up to this point, you know.
So-
For 9 o'clock in the morning, you're pretty
yeah.
feisty. Yeah, it's pretty feisty.
So anyways, the original is definitely it's our flagship, and it's a phenomenal seasoning, and it's just literally, you can rim a Bloody Mary with it. You can put it on your eggs, you can put it on popcorn, and you can put it on your vegetables and pastas and proteins. So
Yeah, that was also a great article with the cocktails.
Mhm.
I'm sure Diana took those pictures of
Yes,
the
she's
cocktails.
amazing.
Yeah,
She's so
she's
amazing.
she really is. What's on the future? I wanted to talk to you about, like, as a small business, and I don't know how large your business is, but let's assume it's a small business because it's
Mhm.
you're the founder. What did COVID do? Even, you're in the States, I'm sure it affected you in a way because we lost 100,000 restaurants.
Mhm. Well, during COVID, I was not in service yet. So I was still in, I was actually, I hadn't, it was the fall after COVID. I sold my food truck in March, just as COVID was hitting, which was incredible. And then I launched into retail with UNFI in the fall. And actually, COVID was beneficial to me because people were home more cooking. And that's, again, one of the things that I always preach is, making food fun and making cooking fun again, and blah blah blah. And so having the blends, like, people found it easier to cook. They didn't have to think so much. It was less expensive, more affordable, because they could have one flavor, or create something with one seasoning instead of having to buy 12 ingredients. So it was actually beneficial. And I think people had the ability and were kind of forced to have a little more creativity and fun with cooking.
Yeah, those flavor profiles are really nice. How would somebody, I mean, I guess they could contact you on LinkedIn, get a hold of you. So, like myself, I asked you to send me samples. You sent me samples. I love them.
Thank you.
So what other chefs, can you mention any of the other clubs? Because chefs are kind of funny about, I can endorse your spices because I use them, but who else is using them? Like, can you mention some other clubs?
Hollywood is currently using them. They use the tropical for their wings. I met with Michael Mignano. He's not currently using them yet, but we're talking. Medina, why can't I remember his name? Matthew Gilbert, I believe.
Mhm.
We're going to be in talks. I have tons of chefs, that are not in clubs using them. I have celebrity chefs that are using them. I have Chef Mirko Agostini from the Hyatt Regency, Chef Frederick from the Ritz-Carlton Grand Cayman. Like, there's a lot of high ends. As far as the clubs, I just met with Diana. We did the Hamptons, we did the mixology event in May, and then we did the club tour in July. And then I was back for the Westchester Country Dinner in October. So it's a process. Like, it's, I'm going to spend the next 6 to 12 months, doing a deep dive into the clubs. I appreciate any help and recommendations, referrals from you by all means.
I think all they got to do is try it, try the blends, try the flavor profiles. I think everybody will agree that they're real nice, complimentary.
Yeah.
The health aspect of it is super important. All of your website, you have that, very, very important. And your father was in Canada, so naturally you gotta go with the Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were close. The Blue Jays were close to getting it. Yeah, they were close to getting it wrapped up. I mean, I think they did very well. It all came down to the final game, final inches, and that's baseball.
I know. It's a tough one. I mean, being in Washington and so obviously so close to Seattle, like, I used to be a huge Canucks fan. Like, I'm a hockey girl. So, but when we got our own NHL team, like, now I'm a Kraken fan, and I have to say, I'm very happy. It goes against my Canadian heart, but I do love when we whoop the Canucks.
There was a guy with a Kraken jersey on at Costco yesterday, and I said to him, I said, it's good to see some hockey fans down here in Georgia. we got a new rink being built. They're going to bring back the ECHL, which will be good.
Right on.
Maybe Atlanta will get a team again. Would be good, but Vancouver, you're up in God's country up there. That is just, I lived in Vancouver during the World Expo, and told my dad when I was coming back home, he said, "How are you going to get here?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to ride my bike." I used to race bicycles, and
bicycles or motorcycles?
Bicycles, yeah.
Okay.
I rode from Vancouver to Seattle, flew to Philly, put my bike back together, rode to Hershey, knocked on his door. He answered the door and he said, "Shit, that didn't take you too long." And he thought I rode my bike the whole way across the country.
Oh, funny. Right on. That's awesome.
Gotta love our dads,
Oh, we do. I got to tell you, it's kind of, so you see those boxes up? I don't know if you see like up here.
Yep.
So it's my parents and my grandparents. So my dad's always with me. And when I moved my mom here, she had dementia and leukemia. So I was able to take care of her the last 6 months of her life, which was huge. It's so hard, but one of the most beautiful things I've ever been able to do. But in doing so, I was able to move my dad's wood carvings. So he has beautiful, I could show you, but tables and stuff that actually were in the restaurant. And the table that I'm sitting at now, he carved, and the chairs he built like 70 years ago. And in doing so as well, my mom had my dad and my grandparents, my Omi and Opa, because they were cremated and they never had a chance to be brought back to Europe. So I was able to bring them all here, and now they're here. And I know it sounds corny, but my house has never been happier. Like when I moved my dad's carvings in, and it literally, I felt like my house was smiling. So yeah. And then my dad, goofs off and turns a light in the fan on me. So, my husband's like, he's like, "Great." He's like, there's 2 more holes for us up there. And my kids are like, "Nah, don't even think about it."
My question is, when he arrived, he had $47. Was that Canadian money or American?
I assume it's Canadian.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
No, he definitely, he was a scrapper. I think I learned my survival skills and tenacity, and the grit and just everything that it takes to really be a founder. Like my mom was amazing and had like a rock too from the Irish side, but the tenacity and the grit, like, man, that's familial. That's genetics right there.
Mm-hmm. What would we do without our fathers?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's my dad and I actually, like growing up, we were super close, but we also had we butted heads a lot because we were very, very, very similar. And I was incredibly independent, and just from I started working. I started working with my mom when I was 8 years old. I'd be her little bus girl kind of thing. But then, and that's besides being 2 years old, sitting at the counter in the kitchen peeling potatoes and carrots for my dad. But the work ethic, I started my first job, I was 12 and then 14, where I actually physically paid. So I worked all the time, and I developed that sense of independence, and I can do my own thing. So my dad and I, at 14, 15, he was like, he had a saying, because he has 5 sons. And he's like, "I always wanted a daughter, and I tried 5 times, and I finally got you." And he's like, "I always wanted to put you back where you came from," because he was like, "You're such a pain in the ass." Yeah.
I think starting early is very important. I started in the kitchen when I was 12, and when my father had hockey, professional hockey, but he knew he couldn't play hockey all his life, so he went to hairstyling school, and boy, he probably got a lot of grief on the ice in the 70s, and he still holds records that'll never be broken in the NHL and the AHL.
He played for Pittsburgh? Wait, Pittsburgh, right?
No, he played for the Rangers, and
Oh.
he was the first player to have a contract in the AHL. He played for the Hershey Bears for 14 years. He was the
Wow.
captain of the team.
Right on.
His buddy played for Pittsburgh. His name was Duane Rupp, and that's how I got my name Duane. Because I always gave my parents a hard time, naming me Duane. But
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, I remember seeing some of the stuff in your dad. That was seriously impressive.
yeah, he's so doing hair, in the 60s, 70s, 80s. He retired in the 90s. But always we did like fashion shows up at the Hotel Hershey.
Oh, right on.
I cleaned the shop, and boy, that was a tough job.
Right.
But got to hang out with all the fun people in hairstyling. It was very cool.
Well, if there was ever a good time to do hair for dudes, especially, it would be the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those permed mullets.
Yeah.
Good time right there.
Yeah, lots of sets.
Awesome.
Lots of sets.
Oh man, from NHL to the hair. That's a story. I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah, to be real tough. He was a tough guy, tough player, always in fights, and even as a coach, when he coached the Fort Wayne Comets after he retired, he was in a bench empty. He pulled a couple guys over the boards, and he was in a three-piece suit, and he got like 6-game suspension.
Right on.
So I'd sit next to him. He'd be on a walkie-talkie telling everybody what to do down there in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
That's awesome. Well, hockey, I think, I don't care what anybody says. I mean, there's a lot of tough sports. I think hockey players are the toughest cats out there, without a doubt.
Oh yeah.
Both my cousins played hockey in Canada, and they're tough cats, without a doubt.
Yep. You gotta be smart. Yep. You gotta keep your head on the swivel.
Oh, right on.
There's Ralph. Yep. That's early Hershey Bears.
Oh my
First
gosh.
player to have a contract in the AHL.
Handsome guy. He looks like almost like Matty Beniers, like one of our studs out here, except Matty's got facial hair. Handsome guy. Yep.
Real charmer.
Yeah, I bet. I bet that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's well, hockey is hockey, and I always use the analogy that being a chef is like hockey. You gotta be, you can get banged up pretty good, and gotta keep your head on a swivel, and put people in the right positions. I'm just a player coach, helping everybody out, go out and win the game.
Yeah. Well, it's teamwork, right? It takes a village for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for how you're helping us at Bellmead Country Club. And I really enjoyed having you on.
Thank you.
And really look forward to sharing the story of your father. And, we taste it, we taste the love, and we appreciate all the help.
Right on. And I appreciate your support. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We'll see you around LinkedIn.
All right. Thanks, Chef. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for being part of the Keller Chronicles. Cook with your heart. Join us in the hospitality mixes to keep the conversation going. And until next time, remember, every meal is a chance to share love, and every day is a chance to make a difference.